Good day, Jamaica. I'm your host, Jason Bourne, and welcome back to another exciting episode of UCC Live. The topic for today is critical thinking at the institution, and today we'll be hearing from different stakeholders at the institution to include faculty members, members of administration, and their very own students on their views on critical thinking at the institution and how it's delivered through course delivery. We'll also be hearing their assumptions about critical thinking and what drives the institution to promote an atmosphere of critical thinking. They'll be validating these assumptions as also making their very own recommendations that the institution can take on to contribute to further developing students where critical thinking skills are concerned. So we're going to head to a short commercial break, but when we're back, we're going to continue that discussion on critical thinking at UCC. So don't go too far.
Yo, ready for you. Not a man.
Just cool one.
Them call me Oliver Orange, me are the king of the show. I quench me all of them thirst from head to toe.
In Rudy Fresh Classic, we got the wickedest vibe. Ever ready for the girls when they want to imbibe.
Excellent, you know we mucho insane. We got the razzle and that's running through our veins.
Look, Pablo,
Whoa, bro. You sound thirsty, man. The wicked taste of fresh juice drink, bound to cool you down.
Salute the fruit.
Salute the fruit.
Welcome back, Jamaica. Thank you so much for being patient with us. So the first voice that you're going to hear from is that of Junior Thompson. He's a first-year student at the University of the Commonwealth Caribbean, and he's currently studying a bachelor's degree in criminology and criminal justice. Thank you so much for being here, Mr. Thompson, and being a part of this healthy discussion. I'm seeing here that you're not only a first-year student, but you're also gainfully employed within the public sector full-time. That must be a challenging situation for you, especially that you're enrolled in an institution that critical thinking is the order of the day. What do you think as a first-year student drives the institution to take on an approach of critical thinking in their course delivery? Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here to contribute to this discussion. That's an interesting question. I believe that the institution takes on a model of critical thinking within course delivery because it's understood that most of the students are coming directly from high school. And having coming from high school, they're used to this spoon-fed environment where learning is based on rote learning principles. And I believe that in integrating critical thinking skills within course delivery, UCC would have set the stage for them to matriculate within university life and adjust to that environment very quickly. I also believe it makes the jobs of the lecturers easier, as lecturers, they're not seen as teachers within a university sense where they're coming here to give you all the information that you need to succeed, but they're more so seen as facilitators, in which they are geared towards facilitating or learning and encouraging us to go out there and seek the knowledge. So in adjusting course delivery to be based on critical thinking, it enforces the values of gaining and garnering and researching information and having producing same. There's also the misconception among students that going to the university for 4 years and getting a degree is enough to make it in life. And I believe that UCC integrates critical thinking as a core value within course delivery because they understand that they're not only there to aid us through university life, but also for us to make it in real life. And critical thinking has way more applications than just academics. In real life, on a daily basis, we're required to think critically. And I think that the institution purposely does this to prepare us for a university afterlife. Or a life after university, I should say rather. Those are some interesting views, Mr. Thompson. But how do you validate, though, these assumptions based on your observation, that is, having been a student for so long? Well, to validate my earlier point about UCC's intention to help students transition from high school, you find that course delivery at UCC is not based on rote learning principles, as would have been at a secondary institution, but it's held to a higher standards within tertiary institutions. You find that course delivery at UCC is on a vague basis, where it encourages students to research, examine, validate, and repurpose information that they would have found. Not only that, when presenting this information, students are held to the APA standards of referencing and citation, which encourages students to go there, find factual, empirical data, and present it in a way that shows that they would have understood what they went out there to achieve. And to support the earlier point about making it easier for lecturers, you find that at UCC, lecturers aren't held to the same standards as classroom teachers within the secondary institution. And this comes as a culture shock for a lot of students, because within secondary institutions, teachers tend to bring all the information, all the content needed for course delivery, which spoon feeds students from start to finish. At UCC, our lecturers, they're more based on a guided learning principle in which they encourage you to do the research. You can definitely take it back to them for guidance in which they will tell you if you're on the right page or not. But it's more on a guided principle to facilitate our learning rather than spoon feeding us from start to finish. Also, as mentioned earlier, there are those amongst us who believe that just going through the institution, getting their degree is enough to make it in life. And based on my observation and the things that I've heard, conversations among students, they're generally limited to what the end product will be. End product being to get their accreditation, to get their awards, to get their degrees and so on. But they're not generally geared towards stimulating what critical thinking is and the values of critical thinking to apply what you've learned in a real life sense. And lastly, I would have observed that students who participate in numerical courses and theoretical courses are better critical thinkers than students who participate in other courses. And through a transformative approach, I believe that the institution has integrated critical thinking in all course delivery, which I'm seeing has now encouraged other students to participate and stimulate conversations which are geared towards critical thinking. Thank you so much, Mr. Thompson. We really appreciate the time it took for you to be here today. The pleasure is mine. So, of course, we'll continue this conversation on critical thinking. It's a very touchy situation. Of course, it's everyone's business once it's been applied at the institution. We have stakeholders that are being affected by it. So we're going to talk to a few stakeholders, to include members of enrollment, lecturers, and even students, to see what are their views on how UCC applies critical thinking through course delivery. So we have Ms. Parker on the line. Ms. Parker, welcome to the show. What's the general consensus amongst teachers at UCC when it comes on to the application of critical thinking through course delivery?
Hi, thanks for having me today. As a lecturer, I believe that merely teaching the content isn't enough to empower students to be able to think critically. I believe that students should benefit from a curriculum that's geared towards inspiring creativity and uniqueness. I believe that this can only be accomplished if the students are willing to approach learning with an open mind and to be constantly in a state of readiness and willingness to conduct research independent of the classrooms. While the approach may cause some students to perform at their best, there are those that will perform at a minimum due to commitment failure. Based on a difference in learning style, not all students will appreciate the approach to critical thinking and will therefore interpret this as an impediment to their learning.
Wonderful, wonderful. Really good conversations we're having here. We have Miss Clark, who's also live with us over the phone, and she'll be giving us the views of the enrollment staff when it comes on to the application of critical thinking within the institution. Welcome to the show, Miss Clark.
Thank you so much for having me today. My name is Anissa Clark, and as an enrollment personnel, the shared idea that persons apply to the university apply with the preconceptions that the university will require them to be critical thinkers. Adults applying to the university should be responsible in their attitude towards learning. In this, the transformative nature of critical thinking can be a great selling point for students who are seeking an institution to invest in their overall development. The approach may cause and prepare students to drop out of the institution prematurely.
Wonderful stuff. So we started with a student, and we're going to wrap this up with a student. Live with us, we have Kalisha Jardine. She's a first-year student at UCC, and she's currently studying a bachelor's degree in social work. Ms. Jardine, welcome to the show. What's the common consensus among students when it comes down to critical thinking within the institution?
Thank you for having me. I am Kalisha Jardine, a student at the University of the Commonwealth, Caribbean. and I am currently pursuing a bachelor's degree in social work. Now, some students believe that merely passing through the different stages of university is good enough once they leave with what they came for, which is a degree. Conversely, there are those who believe that as university students, it's not sufficient for one to just attend classes, swat the content, and deliver results. But I believe as a university student, critical thinking should be the order of the day. Mark you, the approach can be overwhelming and causes stress among the student population, especially for those of us students who are in jobs that already require a high level of critical thinking. So being forced to think critically will have positive impact on our daily lives as it relates to how we navigate and interpret changes within our environment. I thank you.
There you have it, guys, the views of the people, your people, the people of UCC. And of course, having learned all these things here today, we're going to talk about ways in which the institution can definitely improve on the critical thinking application on a day-to-day basis.
So the actions to take, but not limited to, should be one, institution can take on the Brookfields module of critical thinking, having it embedded in our course curriculum and the course delivery. Case in point, the haunting assumptions, which encourage students to not jump to hasty conclusion, but to lay out their assumptions and carefully examine them. Also, checking the assumptions after gathering and examining the assumptions. Students should now be able to validate these assumptions for accuracy. Also, the difference in point of view, which speaks to where students should be encouraged to actively listen to the views of others in regards to the particular subject, and also take on the informed action, where after taking due care to the first 3 steps, students should now be able to make an informed decision based on the evidence presented.
An action that should be taken is to have more stimulated conversations centered on contents rather than traditional classroom delivery.
And also, lecturers should move away from the spoon-feeding style of teaching that's generally associated with second-level education and navigate students in the direction of sourcing their own information through a guided process.
Another action that should be taken is to encourage more activities geared toward problem solving rather than presenting the end product.
An action which should be taken is to encourage students to pursue a quest of knowledge acquisition through proper due diligence. Also, another action is to refer students to utilize the library more often in their search for knowledge.
There you have it, guys. See you next time on UCC Live. We're out.